The U-Haul truck was parked in my assigned spot when I pulled into the parking lot. It was a pretty lousy morning and I was still in a foul mood. I parked in one of the nearby visitor areas, got out of my car and headed towards the truck to tell someone to take the damn thing away when just then she came out of the back with a flashlight in her hand. All thoughts that I was a raging psycho instantly melted away when I saw her. She was incredibly beautiful. She walked down the ramp, heading towards the empty townhouse next to mine. Could I be so lucky? Could this beautiful creature be my new neighbor? I only saw her for a second, but that was enough. When she walked in the door, I couldn't help but notice how her yoga pants showed off her gorgeous ass and those long legs. Whoever invented yoga pants must have a special place in heaven where every straight man can go and thank him or her, if that's the case. I decided to wait by the truck until the nice woman came back out so I could introduce myself and offer to help. When she reappeared, a giant man followed at her heels. Son of a bitch, I thought to myself. It looks like luck won't smile on me today. As they approached, I extended my hand. Hello, I'm your neighbor on 1C, Sam Jenkins. The woman pushed forward of the man and took my hand. Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Lori Turner. I tried my best to look into her blue eyes as we shook hands. It was difficult because, in addition to her yoga pants, she was wearing a sleeveless t-shirt that was tight enough to dispel any doubt that she wasn't wearing a bra underneath. She turned to face the man behind her and introduced us. This is my brother, Raymond Grant. He was nice enough to come from Quincy and help me move. Raymond took my hand and, as he shook it in a friendly manner, there was a look in his eyes that I recognized as, "Don't you fucking dare try to get into my little sister's panties." I decided I couldn't blame him and took the high road by approaching him. Can I help you with the big things? Well, Raymond wasn't stupid. He accepted my offer. Thank you. Could you help with this chest of drawers first? I grabbed the top, he grabbed the bottom, and we carried it all into the apartment while he was talking. It's much easier that way. Lori helped load the items into the truck. She's a strong woman, but I think she's a little worn out. It's nice to have someone fresh to help unload the truck. I need to hit the road tonight. Go to work in the morning. When we entered the bedroom, I saw a little girl sitting at a small desk, coloring. Another introduction from Lori, who followed us with the box. Michelle, this is Mr. Jenkins. He will be our new neighbor. Sam, this is my daughter, Michelle. Michelle stood up from her chair to face me. I extended my hand and was surprised when she immediately placed her tiny hand in mine. It's very nice to meet you, Michelle. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. I couldn't think of anything to say since I'd never spent much time with children, so I decided to resort to the old method. How old are you, Michelle? I'm 4.5. Thank God, Raymond interrupted us. Let's now take a chest of drawers for the other bedroom. What must have been Lori's dresser was larger than the baby's, but we had no trouble fitting it into the master bedroom. Then the children's bed frame. I noticed that there was no bed in the master bedroom and asked about it. Lori answered, My bed and mattress will be delivered tomorrow. My ex still has the old one. I have a small mattress in my spare room. It's full. We can bring it in overnight so you don't have to sleep on the floor. Lori started to argue with me, but I just grabbed Raymond's hand and said, Let's go. We went to my place, and together we carried the mattress into Lori's room. I'll leave you alone now. Call me tomorrow to pick it up. If your bed is delayed, don't worry, I'm not expecting guests anytime soon. I walked out as they both thanked me. My thoughts were on how I was going to find out more about this beautiful lady. I sat on my couch with a glass of cold beer, closed my eyes, and imagined her in my mind. My work schedule was crazy for the next week. We were finishing up an important project, and I ended up spending 3 of the 5 nights sleeping on the couch in my office. We finished at 1 p.m. on Friday, and I treated my staff to drinks at the pub around the corner to thank them for the successful completion. The monetary reward will come later after the client pays use. Most employees left immediately after happy hour, eager to get home to their loved ones. I had nowhere and no one to be with, so John Plagg and I spent a couple more hours in the bar. By 8, I was too drunk to drive. The barmaid Sarah called a taxi to take me home. I fell asleep in my clothes and woke up only at 10 in the morning on Saturday. I hadn't seen Lori during the previous week, and frankly, I was too busy to think much about it. As I sat on the back porch, the sliding glass door to Lori's apartment opened, and she walked out with Michelle. Michelle was wearing a cute swimsuit, and Lori was wrapped in a blanket. Michelle was the first to notice me. "Hello, Mr. Jenkins." Before I could respond, Lori turned to me. "Hello, Sam?" "Hi, Michelle. Hi, Lori. Are you going for a swim?" Michelle answered my stupid question. "We're going to the pool. Do you want to watch me swim? I took lessons last year." Lori started to apologize, but I didn't let her. "Yes, I would like to. I'll go down to the pool in a few minutes. You and Mom go ahead." Lori gave me a look that I interpreted as, "Are you sure?" I ignored her silent question and went into my apartment to grab another cup of coffee and a towel. Lori and Michelle walked across the lawn to our pool. By the time I got to the pool, Michelle was playing in the shallow children's section, and Lori was lying on a lounge nearby. Lori took off her covers. She was wearing a mom bikini that completely covered her breasts and butt, but it didn't make her sexy. Thanks to my dark sunglasses, I was able to get a good look at her body without coming across as an evil pervert. Most of what I saw confirmed my first impressions of her when she wore those yoga pants and t-shirt on her moving day. Lori had a slender build, long legs, and beautiful feet. Her breasts were a little small, the kind that wouldn't sag when she reached middle age, but still full enough to fit a man's palm. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a ponytail, just like last Sunday. Overall, Lori was a beautiful young woman. We sat side by side, carefully watching Michelle and sharing how I got here stories. Lori began. "I got married when I was 18 to my high school boyfriend. We had only been married a year when the condom failed and I became pregnant with Michelle. This drove Michael crazy. He wasn't ready to be a father and still wanted to enjoy life by drinking and partying and running around with his friends. He wanted me to terminate the pregnancy, but I refused, and our marriage gradually fell apart. He spent more and more time away from home. He works on a fishing boat, spends months in Alaska, and months unemployed here, spending the money he earns in Alaska. I won't go into details, but I decided to leave him and filed divorce papers with him 2 weeks ago. After that, my brother showed up with U-Haul and helped me move into the complex. I could see that Lori was struggling to hold back her tears as she told the story of the breakdown of her marriage. What did Michael do when he received the divorce papers? That's the really sad part. Michael just stood there, holding the papers, and there was almost a look of relief on his face, even though he didn't sign the papers. I served him the day before he was scheduled to leave again. I thought it would give us time to think about how we would split up Michelle's visits and all that stuff. It also gave me a chance to move out of our apartment without him pestering us. You said your family still lives in Quincy. Why didn't you go back there? For 2 reasons. I didn't want to put Michelle too far away from her daddy, just in case he pulled his head out of his ass and decided to be her father. And secondly, I have a great job at an oil refinery. The pay there is excellent, and Mitchell's kindergarten is located a few kilometers from the plant. I even have lunch with her a couple times a week. Nowhere in Quincy pays that well, even if a person with my recommendations could find a job there other than waitressing. I could tell that the conversation had left Lori unsettled, and she had yet to talk about the straw that led her to ask for a divorce. She was silent for a moment, then stood up and sat by the kiddie pool, talking to Michelle. I'm almost ashamed to admit that I watched her ass as she walked there. 10 minutes later, Lori returned. So tell me, Sam, what's your story? I married the most beautiful, sexiest woman I ever dated when I was 26. I thought I died and went to heaven. Unfortunately, after 2 years, we both realized that we could only spend so many hours in bed. We spent the rest of the time pursuing various activities and goals. She enjoyed antique shopping and hanging out at thrift stores and garage sales every weekend. I like fishing. I wanted children, and she changed her mind about children after several of our friends had children. Suddenly she called our friends' children carpet rats and swore that she would never have anyone. This is just the tip. There are too many different values and goals to bring them to life. If we had been smart and seen a counselor before getting married, someone might have convinced us not to get married. Maybe we were so into each other. Opposites may attract, but they don't always make for lasting relationships. I'll say this. We didn't cheat on each other. She once gave me a "we need to talk" speech and explained why we shouldn't stay married. I couldn't agree more, and we went our separate ways. Divorce by mutual consent. I still see her from time to time. We're still friends, kissing on the cheeks and everything. Neither of us remarried. This was 3 years ago. Lori listened intently, her eyes glued to Michelle in the pool. I decided to take a risk. "Lori, would you like to join me with Michelle for a barbecue tonight or tomorrow?" Without hesitation, Lori answered, "Yes, that would be great. I have nothing planned for today, and tomorrow we will be busy. What can I bring?" "I'm making delicious potato salad." "Bring it. See you at 5:30, okay?" Yes, I left. I didn't want to rush things on the first morning. We would have had much more time to get to know each other better this evening. That first barbecue went well. We stayed away from the heavy stuff and talked about our work. Over the next few weeks, the three of us got together for dinner at least once a week. One thing became clear. Lori was still in love with Michael. I decided that we were close enough friends to ask a question that didn't have an answer. "Lori, what did Michael do that made you move out and file for divorce?" Lori hesitated before answering, first checking to see if Michelle is busy with a Disney movie on TV. "Last time he came back from Alaska and gave me a sexually transmitted disease. When I got home from my doctor and confronted him, he denied it. He said I must have cheated on him. Called me all sorts of obscene names. Said Michelle was probably not his since he always used a condom when she was conceived and I apparently had sex with other guys without protection. He said I only started taking the pills after Michelle was born, so I wouldn't get caught again. We had a terrible fight. I told him that he is the only man I have been with in my entire life. And it's true. I've never been with anyone but Michael. I suggested that we go to marriage counseling together, but he refused. The swearing and name-calling got worse and worse over the next 2 weeks. I couldn't take it anymore and turned to a lawyer to start a divorce. And here I am. I sat listening to Lori's sad story and thought how terrible it must be to truly love another person and not be able to save the marriage. At least my ex-wife and I came to a mutual agreement to separate. After Lori finished, I almost regretted asking her that question. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. Later that week, I considered asking Lori out on a real grown-up date. But before I could say a word, Lori launched into a tirade. "Some guy at work asked me on a date today. I've talked to my mom about this and she thinks I should wait until the divorce papers are signed before I start dating. She said that any decent guy would respect the fact that legally and morally I was still married in the eyes of the state and church." I sat and listened, silently thanking this guy for being ahead of me and taking all the blows on himself. I'm sure I dodged that one. 2 weeks after this conversation, Michael, who returned from Alaska, appears in her apartment. Over the next week, I hardly saw Lori, only a quick greeting and the occasional brief exchange of pleasantries. One evening, I was sitting on the porch drinking a beer when he walked out her patio door. "What's up with my wife, asshole?" It only took me half a second to appreciate it. He was one of those guys who used bravado to compensate for his size and lack of intelligence. I got up from the chair and walked up to him. Since I am 190 centimeters tall, weigh 95 kilograms, and I keep myself in shape, I towered over him. I extended my hand to push him away, appearing friendly. "I'm Sam." Not too many people call me an asshole, at least not anyone with teeth. You could tell by the look in his eyes that he was thinking, should I take a chance with this guy and continue to act tough, or should I pretend to be friendly without backing off too much? He took too long to answer his question, so I just continued. "Lori and I are neighbors. Nothing else happens between us." I was thinking about saying more, thought about telling this jackal that he is the only one who cheats. But I held my tongue because it was not my fight. Lori was a friend, but I had no right to pry into her affairs. I just hoped she would see through this bastard and end the divorce. This was not altruism on my part. Over the past 2 months, I have fallen in love with her. Lori was not only physically beautiful, she was kind to others, a good mother and a good friend. She even liked to fish. Lori and Michelle have already spent 2 days on my boat. Her only flaw, as far as I could tell, was her inability to cut the rope with Michael. Meanwhile, I tried to keep my cool. There's nothing more desperate than a man waiting in the wings, waiting for the woman he loves to leave some loser. I sat back down, ignoring Michael as he stood there, and continued drinking my beer. Michael turned and walked back to Lori's apartment. Up until that evening, I didn't know the extent of Lori and Michael's reunion, but Michael made sure I knew about it tonight. He left the patio door open with the curtain drawn, most likely so that Lori wouldn't know the door was still open. 10 minutes later, I heard them in her living room, just on the other side of the patio door. Michael spoke louder than necessary. "I'm going to put you on the couch and have sex until you beg me to stop." I had heard enough, returned to my apartment, and closed the patio door. Over the next month, Michael visited Lori's apartment most often. He continued to convince me that he was using her sexually whenever the opportunity presented itself. Lori said hello as we walked by, until one day she stopped me as I was walking out to my car. "Sam, why don't you talk to me anymore? Should I tell her?" I thought about it before responding in the least confrontational way possible. "Lori, Michael has made it clear that he doesn't want me hanging around you." Lori seemed surprised by my answer. "Why should he care? Some guys can't come to terms with the fact that their woman is friends with another man. They view every interaction between a man and a woman from the perspective of their thinking. Men and women cannot be friends, only sexual partners." I could see that Lori was thinking about what I just said. She changed tactics. "Michelle misses you. She misses you reading to her. Well, maybe it's time for Michael to take on this role." Lori laughed, but it was a sad laugh. "I won't hold my breath, Sam. He still barely acknowledges Michelle's existence, and to think I named her Michelle to make him think she was named after him. I wanted to name my first daughter after my grandmother, but I thought Michael might be able to bond with his daughter if she had almost the same name. I'm such a fool. I couldn't argue with that. "Tell Michelle Sam says hi." And I got into my car without saying another word. It turned out that Michael was a victim of his own inability to keep his business in his pants. Lori told me the whole story 2 days after the incident. An old school friend called me. She saw Michael at his regular bar, flirting with another woman. She told me they left the bar together. She followed them and saw them get into Michael's pickup truck. She called me immediately. Angry, I put the sleeping Michelle in her car seat and headed to the bar. Through Michael's windshield, I saw that they were naked. I didn't know Lori was capable of this. She must have been really pissed because what she did next shocked me. Unbeknownst to the two bastards, I took a photo of them with my cell phone. It turned out pretty good. It was easy to see the woman's face and the ring on her finger. I pulled Michelle out of her car seat, still sleeping, walked into the bar and asked if anyone there knew the name of the slut having sex with my husband on the street. Everyone has enemies. And it looked like one of the slut's enemies was sitting at the bar. "Yes, her name is Glenna Forbes," said one helpful visitor. I turned to the Good Samaritan. "Do you know her husband?" The Samaritan smiled. He was obviously pleased with himself, telling me his name was Ted Forbes and he worked nights at the Tesoro oil refinery. I couldn't believe my luck as I work in the administrative office, and it wouldn't be that hard to get his contact information. I thanked the Samaritan and noticed my friend in one of the booths. With a silent smile of gratitude, I left the bar and drove home. That would mean I'd be there for at least 3 or 4 months. But maybe that's for the best. Being around Lori without letting her know how much I loved her was becoming too difficult. During the 4 months that I was away, I returned to Washington only once. This was after the first month, and only on weekends. Lori, Michelle, and I had dinner, and I read to Michelle before bed. It was a pleasant, friendly evening. Lori seemed to come to terms with the fact that Michael might not come back. Sunday morning, I headed back to Texas. It was a Friday evening, months later, when I returned from finishing the project. I didn't see Lori and Michelle until Sunday evening. Michelle was the first to see me as I sat on the back patio. She walked out of their patio and hugged me before showing me the doll that Uncle Jeff gave her. Lori and some tall, dark-haired guy came out a few minutes later. Lori seemed cheerful. "Sam, are you home?" What a surprise. She looked at her companion. "Jeff, this is the neighbor I told you about. Sam, this is Jeff." I stood up to shake Jeff's hand. He took my hand, but I saw that he didn't really want to get to know me. Lori didn't notice anything. Lori seemed to want to stay and chat. She asked me 2 questions about my time in Texas before Jeff interrupted and told Lori and Michelle it was time to head back. He's hungry and it's time to eat. I only spoke to Lori one more time after that. It was the following Wednesday. Lori came to see me and told me how she and Jeff met at work, how he swept her off her feet with a whirlwind romance, how Jeff was in love with Michelle and hoped to one day become her adoptive father. She finally stopped talking about the wonderful and gorgeous Jeff. "Sam, thank you for all the time you listened to my tales of woe. Thank you for being my friend. I'm moving in with Jeff next week and we plan to get married in 7 or 8 months. That's how long it will take to finalize my divorce from Michael. Because he never signed the documents before disappearing, I probably won't have many chances to see you again. Jeff doesn't think it's right for a married woman to have a male friend. In this sense, he is old-fashioned, like Mikhail. When I asked if we could invite you to our wedding, he didn't think it was a good idea. He thought people would start chatting. I told him that you and I have never done anything to be ashamed of, but he thought it best not to give people any reason to think otherwise. Sorry, Sam. When Jeff came the next week to vacate her apartment, I went fishing. Jeff's grin as I walked to my truck told me everything I needed to know. I haven't seen or spoken to Lori in 5 years. I receive a Christmas card from her every December. Inside there is always one of those photocopied sheets where the recipient gets all the family news. Lori and her husband had a daughter 3 years ago, and last year she gave birth to a boy. All seems good in her world, but I wonder if she traded one cruel asshole for another. The truth is, I don't know and I don't care. I date a few, but I haven't had a serious relationship with any of the ladies. I have sex often enough that I don't have to do it myself. I mainly focus on advancing my career. In other words, I'm high on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, close to self-actualization, and quite happy if you ignore the fact that I haven't found the right woman for a long-term love relationship. Last summer, a group scuba diving in the Sound came across a truck at the bottom of the bay. Police discovered it belonged to Michael Turner and reopened the investigation into his disappearance. They came and talked to me. Some smart detective made the connection between the fact that his truck was found near where I keep my boat and that I was once Lori's neighbor. They even politely asked if they could search my truck and boat. I let them. What the heck? There's no way they'll find any DNA, but I think they had to play by the rules. I believe there may come a time when they come to my door and take me away. I'm not really worried, but I really want the nightmares to stop. I once saw a Western film. The bandit said it best. This shows you that sooner or later you must answer for every good deed. Quite cynical, I know, but that's how I feel. Yes, I should have known better. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.